WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock, if you're looking at the streaming video that we're doing live or the podcast that we'll make from this streaming video, you are looking at the cover of a book that is, my goodness, a beautiful, beautiful book. And it is about a city that is probably the most mysterious city that I've ever heard about and I've never been to. When Rabbi Hector's in here, we ask him about Jerusalem all the time. The book is called My Jerusalem, the Eternal City. Our guest is Ilan Greenfield. He's the editor of the book. It was photographed by Ziv Koren. I hope I'm saying the names right. Just a really, really great project and gives us some insight as to everybody has their own Jerusalem. Anybody who's ever lived in New York, this is my New York, right? They'll have their own story about why it's theirs, and so I can relate to this book because of my experience with New York. And let's say good morning to Ilan Greenfield. He's a lover of Israel and the people there. He's an editor, as I mentioned, a publisher, one of the founders of the Ein Pratt Leadership Academy, a pioneering program for high school graduates, which encourages social action and political awareness. And he's a tour guide also, so if you might have met him if you ever took a tour of Jerusalem. And I think he's calling in from Jerusalem, correct?
Yes, he is.
Good morning, Ilan, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Larry and Robin. I'm very well. Thank you for hosting me.
Oh my goodness! And so far away. And how's it today? Robin said it's 4:30 over there in the afternoon.
Yes, it is. It's 4:30. Yes. 4:30, a beautiful sunny day, not too warm, not too cool, very nice.
Before I tell you or ask you questions about the book, I've often wanted to go to Jerusalem. And every time I ask about going to Jerusalem, everybody will say, oh, you got to go. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I often wonder about the turmoil that you hear about in the news. How much of an issue is that?
Well, first I'll answer you with a Jewish question. Nu, when are you coming? And I guarantee you when you come, we'll host you and we'll take you on a short tour. So you should make it the sooner the better. Look, when you ask about the turmoil, Jerusalem is a city with a lot of conflict. Jerusalem is a city that has many different people who want a stake in it. But on the everyday life in Jerusalem is a fabulous city. It's a beautiful city. I don't think you can walk away from Jerusalem untouched. No matter where you come from in your religiousness, where you come from, your politicalness, whether you're right or left, whether you're religious or not religious, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, or whatever other religion is, I think it's a city that touches every human being that comes in. I'll tell you a short story about myself. I grew up in Tel Aviv. And after the Six-Day War, there was a friend of mine who immigrated to Israel from Sioux City, Iowa, of all places.
Wow!
And we went up to Jerusalem, mm-hmm. And he told me something interesting. He said, "Ilan, I never want to live in Jerusalem." And I looked at him. I said, "How come?" He says, "I always want the feeling of going up and into Jerusalem." And I thought that was a very beautiful thing said by a kid, 13 years old. So Jerusalem has its beauty coming to it, but it also has its beauty living in it.
Yeah. Do you know, the one thing about the religious connections to Jerusalem is this, and you sort of hit on it when you said, even if you're not religious, because whether you're religious or not, you have to admit that religion has molded our world, and it seems like almost all religions somehow can trace their roots to Jerusalem. I guess major religions is maybe an important word there. Did I lose you? Is he gone?
Yeah, you're coming in and out.
Okay, and you are too. So could you hear what I said? I mean, it seems like whether we are religious or not, it's hard to deny that the world has been influenced by those religions, whether we are religious or not.
Right. Again, because of the centrality of Jerusalem to the many religions, I think it does affect basically every single one of us. But again, that does not mean that if you are not religiously oriented, that you can't feel something spiritual within Jerusalem. And I think a lot of people who come here, they actually walk out with something very, very unique. And if I can, I'll read something by Nancy Spielberg that she wrote in the book. And she describes and she writes, and then it hit me. This is no Hollywood set. This is my heritage, my history, and I can touch, breathe, and taste it all. And I did. I touched the still warm stones, shyly at first as a stranger, and I listened to the muffled sobs and prayers. And slowly I eased into my own space of prayer and thought, an experience that has stayed with me ever since. And I think that's one of the experiences people feel when they come into Jerusalem. And if I'll quote one more short sentence by Reverend Samuel Rodriguez from Florida. They claim he's the voice for over 100 million Hispanic Christians around the world. And he writes a story, he says, my visits there have taken my faith from my head to my heart. From sermons I preach the land I've stood upon. From a place in my imagination to an experience I can testify about. There are many things that are true about Jerusalem, but one thing is true above all of them. Walking on these streets is walking into the presence of God. And here you are, a Christian and a Jew, one religious, one non-religious, and they both have this feeling that when you walk through Jerusalem, there's something spiritual about it.
And Jerusalem is a destination. It's not a tourist attraction. So sometimes people have preconceived notions about taking an excursion over there.
Look, it depends who the person is. There are people who come here and can't leave. There are people who come into Jerusalem, they fall in love with it, and they'll never leave it again because it's such a beautiful and such an amazing city. But then again, there are hundreds of thousands of tourists who come here every single year, who come, enjoy the city, enjoy the ancient part of the city, the modern part of the city, and I think that they pass a very unique experience, almost unlike any other city in the world. And I've traveled the world around. I've been in many places. You come to Jerusalem, there's an aura. There's something there that's just different. It's very difficult to explain.
Wow.
When you guys come here, I'm sure you'll feel it.
Very emotional.
Well, you know, whenever I've gone someplace that I've learned about through books or through videos, it never feels the way it does in the books or the videos. It's always like the Grand Canyon is a good example. There was nothing to tip me off of what it was going to feel like. So I'm guessing the same thing is true in Jerusalem. As beautiful as the book is, and it is a beautiful book,
it is.
I'm guessing when I actually step foot into that city, it's going to overwhelm me in the way that the book has. The book has overwhelmed me, but I think the walking into the city that you're kind of inviting me to, the book is like a big invitation. Come and see the city.
Yeah.
Is there a Chamber of Commerce in Jerusalem? They must love you.
But first of all, by all means, as a person who lives in this country, I invite everybody, every one of your listeners, to come to Israel, to come to Jerusalem, to visit our office. We'll host every one of you. That should be our biggest problem. I think you were right in what you said. When I went to travel to the Grand Canyon the first time, I think it was also. The books show something. They're beautiful. They tempt you to come in. But when you walk down there, and you suddenly see that opening of that humongous Grand Canyon, there's no question about it. It's different than what you ever thought it was before. And I think with Jerusalem, it's the same thing. People, Jews have yearned to come to Jerusalem for 2,000 years. But I think when you come to Jerusalem, you actually see something else. And if I may share another story, the head of the Jewish agency, a guy called Natan Sharansky, he was a prisoner of Zion in the former Soviet Union. That was a time in the 60s and 70s that the Russians would not let Jews either live as Jews and practice Judaism or leave the country and immigrate to Israel. And he fought for this, and he was put into prison for many years. And he said he had a picture of the old city of Jerusalem, of the wall of Jerusalem. And that's what kept him alive. That's what kept him smiling. That's what kept him knowing that there's a future that one day he'll set foot. In his story, he writes that today, the city of Jerusalem for him is the market in Jerusalem, the Ben Yehuda market. He writes, he goes every Friday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning to what's called the shuk, the market, and he buys his fresh fruits and vegetables, and he says, that is my Jerusalem today. So he goes from the past of 2,000 years to the present, because Jerusalem has it all, has past, present, and future.
Well, Ziv Koren did a wonderful job expressing visually what the storytellers told in their words. I mean, you couldn't have a more perfect marriage between visual and words.
Mm-hmm. Ziv, first of all, is a wonderful photographer, apart from being an amazing human being. And I'll share a short story. When I approached him, I told him I have this idea of doing this, putting together this album. So the first question is money, because in our world, everything is around money. So I asked him, how much do you want for this? And he said, Ilan, the concept is so beautiful. If you have money, pay me. If you don't, let's do the book. I want to do the book. And I was shocked. After 36 years of publishing books, no one has ever told me that.
Wow.
And I must say, he's been a fabulous person, and he loves the book so much that it was a pleasure working with a guy like that who really put aside everything else. And thank God we're selling books and we're giving him what he deserves. But the feeling, and that's what I think made me so much appreciate that the work is so valuable, that other people valued it as well.
You have so many well-known names who have written for the book, written essays. Was that a challenge for yourself as far as getting these people who we presume are busy people, getting them to write for the book?
So, look, on one hand, it was a great challenge because when you think of doing something, you think of the difficulties and you think they're insurmountable. I learned something in life that if you don't ask, you don't get. And if you're afraid of asking someone, approaching someone, there's no chance you'll get it. And I'm a very direct person. I wrote people personally. Most of them did not know me before. And I must say that the reaction was so fabulous. I'll give you an example with Alan Dershowitz. I think he knows who Geffen Publishing is, but I'm not a friend of his. I never really knew him. I sent him an email. He wrote me back right away. He says, Ilan, I'll gladly do this. What do you mean? It's an honor for me to be included in this book.
Wow.
And the same thing with Abe Foxman, who used to be the head of the Anti-Defamation League. And the same thing with Pastor John Hagee, who wrote me and said, oh my God, you'll have a story next week. What kind of a question? And Mike Huckabee and all the other big names, whether they're wealthy people who are philanthropists who do a lot of work in Jerusalem, because Nancy Spielberg, who I've never met before. And I'll give you another insight. Since the book has come out, I have made it a point to try and give personally a copy to each one of the contributors. And every one of them has seen me. I mean, so far the ones I've asked, I was in New York 10 days ago, and I've seen many of these people, extremely busy people, with 100 people every day coming to them and asking them for money and asking them to help them in this and that.
Right.
And every one of them spend the time, looked at the book, and loved the book. Today in the morning, I met with Shimon Peres' son, Chemi Peres. Shimon Peres, our former prime minister and president. And he came to my office to pick up his copy of the book, and he was looking at his father's picture there.
Oh, wow.
His father passed away just about a year ago. And he said, Ilan, this is such an emotional moment for me because my father loved Jerusalem so much, and he always said, Jerusalem gives me the inspiration to dream further along. And Shimon Peres was a dreamer.
The book just came out yesterday. It is really beautiful. The hardcover book, for the audience, just to describe it, these are large, beautiful pictures. You might say it's a coffee table book. I think it's more than that, because that usually is something that people say when they, it's just a picture book. It's not just a picture
No.
book. You've got some really great stuff.
Insight.
What is your thought on the future of Jerusalem? What do you see as far as the tug of war between the people who want to say it is theirs and only theirs? I like the idea that the book shows that it's kind of everybody's Jerusalem, and maybe is that part of the reason why you did this?
Well, there are two very important points in what you just mentioned, Larry. One of them is that Jerusalem is everyone's. There's no question about it. Everyone can come and pray. Everyone can come and visit. Everyone can come and perform their religiosity within Jerusalem. At the same time, we have to remember, when Jerusalem was not under Israeli rule, many religions could not perform their religion. Jews certainly were not allowed to come in and were not allowed to pray in Jerusalem. Only under Israeli rule has there been freedom of religion for Jews, for Christians, and for Muslims, and for many others as well. And one of the major points of this book are that we have to remember Israel has to have its eternal city as its eternal city and as its capital. Only Israel can decide which city is their capital, just like the United States decides what's its capital, and just like England does. And while we can keep it as a capital, we have to be very cautious, we have to be very sensitive to all other religions, and let everybody have freedom of practice of their religion. And so far, I think we've done a very, very good job in this country. Again, there are many problems, there are many conflicts, but I think altogether, this is definitely the highlight of what Jerusalem is today. It's like people talk about democracy. Democracy has problems, but it's still much better than all the other ways of running countries. So the problems we have to deal with, we have to confront, we have to improve, but we have to remember we have to keep the freedom of religion and the freedom of access to every holy site to anybody who wants to come. And that, I think, is very important. That's one of the messages of the book. When you talk to me about the future, I believe that under Israeli rule, Jerusalem will bring the world closer to peace. I think that the message of peace has to come out of Jerusalem, not the message of conflict.
Wow. Do you think it's
by what we're doing?
Do you think the younger generation looks promising as far as that being pulled off in our lifetimes?
Look, the younger generation, how should I say, the younger generation has an advantage. They're going into an amazing technological world.
Yeah.
They have difficulties because they don't always know how to appreciate what I think anybody, I'll say older than 40 or older than 60, has had and has appreciated. But I think it's an amazing generation. It's a bright generation. And I believe if we give them the challenges, they will live up to them. And that's what we do at our academy. We do for high school graduates before they go to the Army. We take them for 10 months and we try to give them ideology. We try to teach them how to be better people, how to be more involved in society, how to contribute. And as Kennedy said, don't think what the country can do for you. Think what you can do for the country. And I think as much as it's cliche, and we all say, okay, we've heard it, it's not true. When we give the younger generation a challenge, they will take it and they will run forward with it, and they'll do amazing stuff. They'll save people's lives. They'll help make life better. And I think we see it all over the world.
The nation of Israel was reestablished in 48, but Jerusalem was reunited in 67. Is that right?
Right, June 7th, 1967. That is correct.
Okay, I never knew that until...
Yeah, that was the Six-Day War.
I didn't. Oh, okay. See, I'm just so I'm bad with that kind of stuff. Well, thank you for sharing this with us. I want to let the listeners know this is a beautiful book. It'll definitely make you want to visit Jerusalem. If you have visited Jerusalem, guess what? You're going to love this book. It sells on Amazon for $50. It's a hardcover book. If you would like the copy that was sent to us, I will give it away. I'll pick a caller at random. So the number is 622-9622, and we'll just give it away. Somebody will definitely enjoy this book. But the rest of us can go buy it. I found it on Amazon. Do you have another website that you can direct us to?
Yes, you can go to a website called myjerusalemus.com.
Okay.
It's
myjerusalemus.com.
It's very commendable, sir, that you took the time to ask the people to give their insight for this particular endeavor. It's very emotional when you read their words, and we really hope that the next generations will embrace this project.
I'm sure they will. And Larry and Robin, once again, I extend a visit to you. And when you come to Jerusalem, please do come and visit us. Stop by our office, and we'll be glad to host you and everybody else as well.
Just no gefilte fish. I just don't want gefilte fish. I just never...
I have a good story about that. I don't like it either.
I'm okay with pretty much everything else, but that gefilte fish just doesn't look good to me at all. Ilan, thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us today.
Thank you, and shalom from Jerusalem.
Shalom back to you. Thank you. That's sweet. All right. We will. We'll take a caller off the air to give the book away. Okay. So we'll do that in just a bit. This is WOCA Ocala. Here is your 30-second news brief. A 21-year-old Ocala man died in a motorcycle accident Saturday morning on County Road 326. The Florida Keys reopened to tourists yesterday, 3 weeks after Hurricane Irma devastated the area. Floridians can now register to vote over the internet. The website is called registertovoteflorida.gov. And a Coast Guard report into the tragic end of the cargo ship El Faro blames the captain for the sinking that resulted in the deaths of all 33 sailors on board. And that is your news brief from The Source.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. More clouds and sun and breezy on this Monday with a stray shower, high 82 to 86. Partly cloudy Monday night with a shower in spots along the coast, low 70 inland, 78 along the coast. Breezy tomorrow, Tuesday, with clouds and sun. There'll be a shower at any time, except a couple of showers and even a thunderstorm near the coast, the high 82 at the coast, 86 inland. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
The entire world watched. They watched each step down the rungs of that small ladder, one after another, and waited with great anticipation for that last step.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
At that moment, humanity saw the impossible become the possible. And today, the sky is not the limit. Achievement. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
An unexpected pregnancy can turn a young woman's life upside down. The House of One in Faith in Ocala gives these young women a place to live in privacy and comfort under the Christian care of counselors who will guide and protect both the woman and her unborn child. The House of One in Faith is confidential, loving, and free. For more information, call 352